With 3 minutes on the clock, it's impossible to convert it cleanly.
Yeah.
And Hans just very, very good chess by Hans at the end. So, okay, finally a Sicilian, Felix, finally.
Something new. And Dubov does not go for his line with h5, which he did in the previous match, but he goes for the classical dragon.
Is classical dragon by engine still an okay opening?
Actually, it sort of is. I checked it more recently, and while white has some sort of small advantage with the engines in correspondence chess, for example, black even holds exactly like Daniel is playing at. So that's one of the main lines here. And white does keep a small edge, but with good play by black, at least according to the computers, it's nothing much. But of course, in a practical game, anything can happen. Black does have the worst structure here. We can see the pawn on c6 is an extra pawn island. But on the other hand, black gets the open b file, which might often lead to attacking chances after something like rook b8 in many cases.
Nice. Yeah, you're a better expert than me in a dragon for sure, and I'm so glad that you gave me this insight. And this pawn sacrifice, is it typical?
I think that queen a5 was not the main move. I think bishop e6 was. And there was one game by Gawain Jones, who is one of the big experts in the dragon, who I think also played this exact pawn sacrifice before. And as far as I remember, it's not entirely correct, but it does ask many difficult questions for white, because if black gets two more moves in, bishop e6 and rook c8, and perhaps rook b8, then white is going to have a very tough time to defend this attack.
Yeah, I'm also trying to check if queen a5 is a good move, but I mean, Dubov did kind of blitz it, and I think it's like second or third best move, and this pawn sacrifice is, yeah, actually very, very nice. And of course, Hans didn't even consider taking the rook on a8, He just...
Yeah, but maybe now he is, because what actually happens after taking there? I guess bishop f5 is the idea. And he does go for it. Queen a8, bishop f5, taking on f8 is forced. There's a mate threat on c2, and now bishop d3.
And again,
very interesting. Another endgame, yeah?
Yes, I wanted to say the same. Again, an endgame. Wow, what a coincidence. I mean, yeah, the chess is, just... Chess is endgame at this point, at this level that they're playing. But of course, two rooks against the queen. This is anything but a draw right now. This is, again, a very fighting game. Would you take white or black pieces here, Felix?
I think that white should have the better objective chances, but practically I'm not so sure, because the queen is just so tricky in faster time controls. And I have to say, I really love Daniel's opening choices so far, because he really goes for the positions that are practically difficult to handle for Hans Niemann. And he prepares them very well always. I've always also noticed that in their previous match, that he has those very nice practical opening ideas. h5, h4 on the board, fixing the weakness on g2.
Very nice.
But the c-pawn is quite fast in many cases.
It's exactly like white is a pawn up, besides, of course, having two rooks against the queen. So if we did a chess math, it's +2,
Yeah, true.
However, like you said, queen can be tricky. However, combined with the bishop, I would pick white pieces just because, of course, this pawn is running, and somehow I'm not scared of anything yet. I would maybe play b3 at some point just to stop any checkmate ideas by black, but that's why, of course, also a5.
Yeah, a5, a4 is a very nice idea. And c5 immediately could run into ideas like queen d5. So he goes for king e1 first, just stepping out of this diagonal, where there are often checks from f5, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So a4, of course, on the board. Okay, but now after a3 with this bishop on e6, it's not so clear.
Yeah, now Daniel is able to blockade the pawn on c4 quite comfortably, at least for the moment.
Yeah, and with white pieces, if I ever decided to push this pawn, I would be slightly scared, like queen b6, queen b3, and then, checkmate on a2. However, bishop b1 is always nice way to protect.
That's a great point. Yeah, bishop e1 does keep the king pretty safe. g5 on the board. So Daniil playing very positionally. This type of position, putting already the pawn on h4 to fix the weakness on g2.
I agree. However, Felix, what else could he do here?
I was thinking he could. I was expecting him to run in with the king to g3, knowing Daniil Dubov. But, well, he might still be able to do that, playing king e5 at some moment.
Very, very nice. King e5, king f4.
And he goes for king e5.
In his style. Like, you know him. You know him, yeah?
Bishop d5.
Exactly. So how can we continue with black now? Now, of course, we cannot take on d5.
Yeah, bishop f5, which also sets up a nice trap, queen g1 check, which would actually be checkmate.
Yes, after bishop e4, I think... oh, would you want to take it? I guess.
Well, now...
Would you?
I would consider it. What would happen after bishop e4? He did go back to e6, though.
Maybe... No, I think he would just... Yeah, actually, you're right. I think he would have just taken it and gone rook d5 or something. But then g2 could be hanging.
Yeah.
Could be tricky.
Yeah.
I agree, but he just decided to go bishop e6. Maybe he was just waiting for him to repeat the move.
And now the king is entering. King f4, bishop c2.
Oh my.
Dubov gives a check on g1. I expect king a2 to be played.
Yeah. And now a4 is hanging. So how are we protecting it?
That's a great question.
So if we cannot protect, that means we have to attack. Something like queen c1, queen e1. Oh,
he does protect it with queen a7.
I don't exactly like this move, but okay, if it's necessary, that what can I do?
Yeah, I'm also not a big fan. You would like to go sort of forward with your pieces, but it's also not clear how white is actually going to improve the position, because c5 is never possible with the king on a2.
Yeah, whenever... I just wanted to go rook e2, rook e6, at this point, because I just want to push this pawn. It probably doesn't work, it's just my stupid ideas. But in blitz, anything can happen. Bishop d1, just again asking black a question. Okay, so what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, and king g3 could run into some f4 ideas quite often as well. To be careful.
Could be,
yeah, exactly.
On the board. I would love to see it. So let's go, Daniil. Let's go king g3.
And he goes for it. King g3, king b1. So now bishop takes a4 is a threat.
Is it?
It's not. The queen is still on a7. Okay, the queen is still on a7. c5 is a threat. C5 is a threat.
That is a threat, yes. I agree, yes. So queen, I think it's very misplaced on a7, but yes, the pawn is hanging otherwise. And of course, white has this beautiful f4 idea at some point. I'm very excited for Hans to play it one day. But no time for Dubov. Played on 1 second. Wow.
Crazy.
Think Hans will score.
But Hans also down to 5 seconds.
Okay.
f4 is played. King takes f4, rook d5. Is he setting up a checkmate? Net, g4, c5 now on the board. Wow, e5 getting a lot of counterplay. e4 could be coming. But now c7.
Okay.
What can Daniil do? And did he lose on time? gh3 on the board. He played with 1 second.
They're so strong with playing so low on time, but I think this is over now.
Still
struggling though, but
wow.
Whoa, what moves! Threatening bishop f5 or rook f5 even.
And bishop f5 is on the board.
Beautiful.
And rook takes f5. Now I think Daniil is going to resign. Wow. Beautiful. What a game.
That was actually a big struggle to win for white, but once Hans stabilized with the king and his bishop, it was too hard for black.
Yeah.
I think, right?